Welcome to the Mccleoud Show. I'm Molly, and in each episode, I sit down with Mccleoud to explore the principles and strategies behind creating more success, freedom, and fulfillment in life and business. Today, we're talking about how the image you hold in your mind can begin changing your reality, why people struggle to remain faithful to a new result, and the simple practice Joelle recommends to begin creating a real shift. Joelle, it's a beautiful day for this conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. How are you?
I'm doing incredible. Sun's shining outside. It's hot in Manchester for once, so I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Amazing. Let's get into it then. So Neville Goddard spoke about living in the end. What does that actually mean in simple terms?
Yeah. Well, when Neville's one of my favorite authors, by the way. But when I first started reading Neville, like, to me, it was all like, whoa, it was a really heavy read. But in simple terms, living from the end means you live as if you've already achieved your goal. So you've got to think like that person, you've got to feel like that person, you've got to act like that person, and also you've got to make decisions like that person as well. So in the outside world, no, you're not that person, but you've got to take yourself there in your imagination, and you've got to persist in living from the end. So in other words, if you'd already achieved your goal, what conversations would you have? And I always say this to my clients. Let's say one of my clients wants to earn £50,000 a month. And I'll ask, well, what conversations are you having with yourself? And they'll turn around and go, do you know what? I'm thinking about how I can earn 50K a month. And I say, well, it's not going to work. You've got to live from the end. Because if you was already earning 50K a month in your outside world, what would you say? What would your thoughts be? They wouldn't be, how can I get to 50K a month? You could never have that thought because it's already done. So your mental conversations have to match what you would say out loud if you'd already achieved your goal. Now, if all of your inner talking matches what you would say out loud if your goal had been achieved, that's going to put you into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So mental conversations, inner talking is conscious, but every thought produces a similar feeling. So that puts you into that state known as the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And if you persist in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, your subconscious mind now believes it. Subconscious mind controls your vibration. Vibration is always expressed in action, and that action that you take sets up an equal and opposite reaction from the universe. And like Neville Goddard says, when you live in the end, when you dwell there in your imagination, it causes a bridge of incidences in your outside world to unfold, to move you physically where you are psychologically. And that's where, to the unenlightened person, it's, oh, but that was a coincidence. This happened and you met this person at the right time. It's called a bridge of incidents, but everything happens by law and not luck.
Can I ask what that looked like for you in your own life?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was only 3 years ago I was broke. Like 3 years ago, I was a model earning £15,000 a year. And when I first got mentorship, that's what they worked on me with. Like, you can't be looking at the end goal. You've got to live in the end. You've got to be the end goal. So I was earning 15K a year, but in my mind, I wasn't. I wrote down on a goal card, I'm so happy and grateful now that I've turned my yearly income into a monthly income. Now, at first, I didn't believe that. But the more I was living from the end, the more I was thinking about it, the more I started to believe that I was already that person. So when I was earning 15K a year, that was the outside. Inside, I was earning 15K a month. Now, it took 5.5 months for it to show physically. But 5.5 months earlier, I mean, I was already there in my mind. And the same thing when I reached out to Bob Proctor's team, because I was so passionate about this material and what it had done for my family and my situation and my income. And they told me, I could work with Bob, I could become a consultant. And I heard about, you can get a bronze pin, a silver pin, a gold pin. You can get into Bob Proctor's circle of excellence and be top 1%. The day I became a consultant, in my mind, I was living from the end. Not, I can't wait to be top 1% of Bob Proctor's consultants. I already am. I'm the best Bob Proctor consultant that's ever existed. Now, because I was there psychologically before it happened, I was living from the end. And like I said before, we're always going to move psychologically where we are physically.
So why do people visualize and affirm but still keep getting the same results?
Such a good question. Well, visualization is a very powerful tool. And affirmations are a very powerful tool. But the reason it happens is because you can't wake up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror and say, I am wealthy for 10 minutes, and then do it just before you go to bed. But for the other 23 hours of the day, you're having thoughts of when's it going to happen, or I've not got money. So you can't just visualize for 2 minutes. What are you doing with the other 23 hours and 58 minutes that you've got within the day? So most people will wake up and they'll write their affirmation 100 times, I am wealthy, but then they'll switch off, they'll go into autopilot, and throughout the day they're thinking, oh, I've not got money, I've only got this in my account, etc., etc. So when you visualize, it's a very powerful tool, and when you affirm, it's a very powerful tool. But then what are you doing with your thoughts throughout the day? You know, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So if 1,000 of your thoughts in the morning are I am wealthy, but the other 59,000 are, oh, I'm broke, it's not working, I'm unlucky, I'm unhappy, then the affirmations and visualization are not going to work. So what you've got to do is you've got to discipline your thinking throughout the day. You know, you've got to have tools and processes where throughout the day, you are always consciously aware of what you're thinking, because that's what everyone has agreed on. All the wise men have disagreed on pretty much everything apart from one thing, and that's we become what we think about. But they didn't say we become what we think about when we're visualizing for 2 minutes, when we're affirming for 2 minutes. No, we become what we think about all day long. So we can't expect to visualize and affirm, and then with the other 23 hours in a day, we're just falling back into that old habitual way of negative thinking. It's not going to work.
So how do you personally use this principle to change your own life?
I use it every single day. So I'm always living from the end, you know, all the time. If I had a camera on me 24 hours a day, you should see how much I'm looking at my goal card, how much I'm just going into the silence for 5 minutes and just creating inner conversations as if I've already achieved my goal. Like, I've got an event coming up in Manchester at the Hilton, and this is on the 2nd of August, right? I mean, we're not at the 2nd of August yet, but I've already been there in my mind. I know the amount of people that turned up. I know the breakthroughs that happened. So I'm always living from the end. I don't see anything within the future. As far as I'm concerned, time's an illusion. So this is what most people do. Do you know what? I'll reach my goal soon, or I can't wait to reach my goal, but time's an illusion. So you've got to reach your goal now. So for me, I'm always living from the end. Now, do I fall back into doubt and worry sometimes? Yeah, because I'm human. And it's a known fact that with high achievers, the old self pops back in 12 to 15 times a day. So that old self is going to come back in and say, oh, can you really do this? Will it really work? And you've always got to audit yourself. You know, I speak to that old version of me and say, look, that's not me anymore. I'm now the man that is a multimillionaire. I enroll this many clients a month. I get treated this way, and I'm an incredible person. So it's not that the voice goes away. You just stop obeying it. And when it comes in, you just tell it. You tell it who you are now. Now, I'm not reacting to it, or why have you come up again? It's just, I see you, I acknowledge you, but I'm not that person anymore. I am now the person who takes action in spite of fear. I am now the person that puts myself in uncomfortable situations. So I'm constantly auditing myself. I'm reprogramming myself 24/7. You know, I always prioritize my mornings and just before I go to bed as well, because they're the portal to your subconscious mind, but also throughout the day. You know, if I get a voice come up, Joel, can you really do that? You can't do that. You know, that's a bit of a stretch. Like, I'll take myself away from all the people around me, and I'll go into the silence, and I'll get that conversation from the end again. What would I say right now if I'd already achieved it? Okay, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have this. I'm so happy and grateful now that I have that. So I'm constantly reprogramming myself every single day.
That's really useful.
Have to.
What should someone do when their current reality pulls them back into doubt and negative thinking?
That's a great question. Well, what you've got to do is, the most difficult thing in the world is to discipline your thinking. Okay? So most people don't think, Molly. You know, mental activity doesn't mean that you're thinking. Henry Ford said that thinking is the most hardest thing in the world. That's why most people don't think. So what happens is, let's say if someone's a business owner and they've got clients coming in, they've got money coming in. It's easy to think, wow, I've got clients coming in, I've got money coming in. But what about when you have a slow week? What about when you lose a client? What about when you don't make as much money as you expected that week? It's a lot more difficult to say my calendar is booked with qualified leads when you're looking at your calendar and there's nothing on it. So what most people are doing is they're not disciplined in the thinking. They look at their calendar and they've got no calls booked and they think, shit, I've got no calls booked. When what they really need to do is just go into their imagination and imagine that they've already got calls booked. So one thing that I take away from Neville Goddard that I implement all the time is you've got to deny your senses. The outside world is not the truth. The results that you're experiencing right now are just the result of what you thought about in the past. So what you think about today is going to be manifested in 3, 6, 12 months from now. Okay? So you've got to stop letting the outside world control your thinking. And to do that, you need certain tools and certain processes, but you've got to get your thinking to control your results instead of your results controlling your thinking.
What is one simple practice you want someone to follow after watching this episode?
Well, what I want the viewer to do is I want the viewer to get a pen and paper and I want them to write out a scene as if it's already been achieved, the end scene. So first of all, they've got to know what they want. Now, if they don't know what they want, they need to think about what they would love to achieve over the next 6 months, okay? Now, what they want to do is they want to write down an end scene. So if their goal had already been achieved, they want to write down from the end goal. So let's say we've got someone who wants to make £50,000 a month 6 months from now. I want them to write down an end scene of, I am so happy and grateful now that I've been earning £50,000 a month for the past 3 months and it feels amazing. I'm enrolling this many clients a week. I'm making this amount a week and I'm always attracting qualified buyers who are ready to say yes. Every time I get on a sales call, I say my price with so much conviction and belief and people would be absolutely stupid not to work with me. Now, the whole point of it is you're going to take yourself to what Neville says, now you're living in the end. So I want them to do that exercise and I want them to set an alarm for every 3 hours and I want them to repeat it to themselves in their inner talking. Now, through repetition of this, you're going to be thinking from the end, living from the end. That's going to produce the feeling called the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, once you're in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your behavior is going to start to change and you're going to start acting from that end scene. So to make this simple for a person, you're taking yourself there in your imagination to the end scene. You're there psychologically. Wherever you dwell psychologically, you're going to move there physically. Now, and I don't want them to do this for a day and tell me it doesn't work. I don't think this will work for them. Like I know it will work for them because I've experienced it for myself. But we can't expect to say, you know what, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get in shape. And they go to the gym for 7 days and they look in the mirror and they say, do you know what, it's not working, so I'm going to quit. You know, it's the repetition of this exercise that is going to get you phenomenal results. So I want the person to implement this and I want them to comment on the results as well.
Definitely. We look forward to seeing them comments. That's some really good practical advice I think everybody can apply. Mm-hmm. So we hope you found today's conversation valuable and that you take the action Joel shared with you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Joel Mccleoud Show. Thanks for joining us on The Joel Mccleoud Show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from it. We'll see you in the next episode.